to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to make sure everybody signs in. This is going to pass it around. We're going to continue a public hearing. Well, we'll hang on a second. We'll just open up the floor real quick to any public comments that have nothing to do with what's on the agenda tonight. Not hearing any? We're going to continue a public hearing that we opened up around 6 o'clock on Bonnyman Road. The continuance of a lot line adjustment and minor subdivision applications submitted by James Laval Associates for property owned by Albert Patnod Jr., tax map 8-31 and 32, and tax map 7, lot 2, 140 Silver Hill Road, and 2 lots on Silver Hill Road. The applicant is seeking an approval of lot line adjustment plan and a minor subdivision plan to create a new lot from 3 existing lots. So we want to continue that. Board, any more questions before I open it up to the public? Do we have any public comment on this subdivision / lot line adjustment? Not hearing any, seeing any? Guess we can talk about it. I don't know if Tim, if you have anything you want to add before?
What I want to add is I had made revisions to the plans you saw a couple of weeks ago. I added the zone line.
Okay.
So you can see that. Other than that, we didn't make any changes pending our site walk. Yeah.
So the only thing that we saw was that we need an easement for the turnaround? Or is that already indicated here?
It's not indicated there.
Definitely not indicated.
Per our discussion on site, Al wants to make the road plan part of the association plan, but I don't see why it can't be part of both. We could just add that as a 4th sheet of our plan set. As you know, we still haven't applied for state subdivision approval. We're just kind of waiting to see how things went here before we spent the money on that. Seeing that things, at least to me, appear to be going in the right direction as far as our 3 lots go. We can submit that and get subdivision approval by the time we get back here. GES does not take very long looking at that sort of thing.
I think we're in okay that we're moving forward. We just need this and maybe just to make sure that the subdivision has the association, right?
Well, we just want to make sure, I think one of the biggest things we want is the association to be whole.
Yep, right.
And so you guys, I'm sure, have association documents now?
Yes.
Because Ellsworth has those, yes.
Okay. I would think we would want to see them.
Yeah, right.
Do we have a copy? Have you guys submitted a copy or not?
Nope, I can give them to you. I actually have a copy of it. I can, if Victor wants to make a copy, you guys can have a copy.
You have them with you?
I do.
Are they long? Are they? They're not.
I guess it depends on what.
If they're not 10 pages long.
You just second while you discuss it.
Yeah, I think, we need a
Yeah.
good viable association. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's what we're after here mainly.
Yeah.
That we want an association that works, and we want certain things in that association. And I was thinking about it on the drive back here was, like a lot of lake associations, probably don't have a reserve account. But should it have a reserve account? I know a lot of associations are paving their hills you know, I don't know if that's a good spot to pave the hill or not, you know, but that takes away 90% of the erosion that is caused is because on hills are the dirt roads.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the dirt could easily still
Here you
get bunched up and go across the road and go into the lake.
Yeah.
I think good maintenance and good practice takes care of that, but it doesn't always happen. We already saw what happened to the last
Yep.
association, that it went defunct, and now somebody has bought it, or has bought it, and he's willing to do the right things and make the association whole and make it work. You know, but do we try to get the, come on up.
Bring it up.
Do we try to get, you know, something in the association documents that is a reserve maybe to be able to hop it someday, the hill, or?
We haven't done anything with hot top in that sense. There will be a reserve built up as the association fees are paid. It does cover the maintenance and requirements of that. Talking with your road agent, because I had mentioned originally possibly paving the apron as we come on. He had indicated he wasn't a big fan of it, just because he didn't want any additional speed to the water that's there coming onto Bonnyman, because it comes onto Bonnyman and immediately turns onto another hill coming down Bonnyman. So he didn't want heavy volume and speed picking up on that water. He'd rather it get filtered off to the side. That's why we added that additional swale that wasn't originally there, even though that's not it's not going to collect a lot. But with the proper 2% slope off the center line of that roadway, it'll capture more of that, be slowed down by the riprap coming through and the grass swale itself.
All right, but so somebody goes up that road and they push the gas on the pickup truck with no weight on the back.
Yeah.
It's gonna cause a rut.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, water's going down the center of the road and washing the dirt. No one takes care of it. It continues to be a problem. That's the way it was a year ago when we went out there to look
Yeah.
at the other situation we looked at.
Yes.
So with that being said, that's the only reason why I bring up hot top on hills. I know at Bella Lake, we've paved almost all the hills because we're always on them. That's the reason why Danny Davis paved Pit Pocket Road, because of those two big hills. He was always there
Same with Oak Hill.
fixing washouts.
Yeah, but we're not talking of a hill, we're talking a major mountain steepness that I believe in just what he's saying. I think that the more you put paved there, that's going to turn the water much
Well,
faster.
if the
and it'll
road's-
over-
Not
it'll
if the-
over-
if the road's crowned.
Not if it's
It's not.
crowned right. Not if it's crowned right. But I hear you. And I think that situation, you got a lot of water, you know, you could have a lot of water. You know, that
It's going to
could make it,
I
could
think
make
in-
it go faster and could make it more dangerous with ice in the winter and everything else, people sliding down the hill. Sometimes gravel in the winter is much better.
I would say that slope probably is a little steeper, but not much. But it'd be similar to Wakefield Acres, where it comes down, but that's pitched and it runs off the side. You don't see all the water coming straight down. It goes off to the side into those swales. So the swales
Right.
do work.
Yeah, the pavement, I think the pavement is the best thing, but I'm not sure it's needed as long as we have some teeth in.
Yeah. I mean, if you
We
want to
want
talk,
this, we just, Al, I think, I know I do, and I know there's a few other board members, that we want the association to be strong and be viable, to take care and maintain that road. Because it's a very tough situation.
Right, and if you don't mind me stepping actually into your regulations, that would be something that, so I review regulations for all different towns. That's the one item that's not in your regulations as a board. You don't provide provisions for your board or for your DPW to review and inspect and force management of, which would be something that would be great for your group to look into, to add into your regulations. Because right now, you have the association as part of the requirement, but you have no enforcement on your end of it. And I can see that being a weak point. Most towns have provisions in there for the road agent, even though it's not theirs technically, to at least review, because it ultimately ends up affecting the town roads themselves. So I do understand what you're saying. And again, I have no problem if you don't think that's sufficient. Again, I've done a few of them, and that's kind of a baseline of where we typically have found is sufficient to cover everything that's required. on the homeowner's end of it, from maintenance right through insurance and all the requirements that are, to do it right, I guess is the best way to look at it.
So this is a brand new document. There was
Correct.
really no document before.
No, there is, I can give you that one, but it's junk, I guess is the best way to put it. The original document was everything from an architectural design control to kind of a homeowners association. I can show it to you, it's
So are there covenants in that?
yes.
Are they like existing or they hadn't been reviewed? What's the, you have to renew them?
They haven't been
right?
renewed.
Okay, so those are gone then?
Well, I guess depends which way you read the state statute. As per the limitations within the covenants themselves,
Yep.
yes, they're non-existent. But under state statute, they still carry because nothing's replaced them. Does that make sense? So until something replaces them, even though they're past their time, they
Yeah,
don't
'cause I thought it was like 25 or 30 years or something like
Correct,
that.
yeah. So they're a fair amount past their
Sure.
life,
Yeah,
but because there's nothing that's replaced them,
yeah,
they still carry. Otherwise, it'd be, the existing houses, everything else would have no frontage, would have no nothing. So they still carry until they get amended or changed. So really, although that's a new document, it's an amendment to,
sure.
because that will still tie to the original
Yeah.
and be an amendment to that original. So when you cross-reference and do a title search on it, it'll show that one as well as the new, and the new supersedes the old.
Okay,
With that, we've also just created a separation because it has a beach parcel that's part of the original subdivision.
Yeah.
So we've separated that to its own life and provided a separate document for that. Because again, they're two different animals.
yeah,
So for liability and practicality.
yeah.
And one of these lots, which will be as part of the road association, will not.
Right. Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Any other comments?
So your concern, Tom, was the turnaround area.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget about that, because you're talking about wanting an easement there, but when we were on site, it looked like that edge of that road was way up the hill. Do we need an additional easement, or do we leave that up to their road design?
As you can see, the edge of the roadway is up on the steep part. We were standing way down here, so the road will be kind of brought up that way. We'll look at the easement. I don't want to say we don't need one
Okay.
without looking at it a little more closely. And if we do, we'll add it to.
In order to make the turn you're talking about, yeah.
How long in your estimation would it take you to get state subdivision approval?
Week.
It's pretty quick these days.
Worst case scenario too, I mean, we can submit it tomorrow. We're just ready to click to the payment.
And did we decide we're gonna do the road and the two,
No, I think they should add that profile plan, the street plan that you guys have.
We can just add it. I mean, we're recording the front two sheets. This one isn't being recorded anyway, so neither will the subsequent one.
That's the draft, and if you want, that you originally created before the lots change of the roadway. So I'll
You
just
have that
show you
here.
that again.
Yeah. Here's what the lots look like before.
Yeah, you're talking about the road. I was talking about the road, right?
Yeah, I was talking about the road plan, which,
Yeah, can you show us that?
so basically Tim will be adding,
Oh,
just a simplified road, unless I'm incorrect, this is what you're talking, so this is the road plan with the topo, existing topos, it shows the cross culverts that are there. Does show the one that actually does already show that coming across, and already did that. So that's what we would be adding, again, a pretty version of that. For the fourth page is up.
As you can see, we were standing here, the actual curve is way up there. And Al does have a plan with grading and the turnaround, which we can make part of this plan set. Rose from Rose Survey had done that, we worked together on this project, so I'll just have her send us that sheet, add it into the plan set.
But we wanna see if you guys are gonna need to put that easement on the plan, whether you build it first or if you're gonna
Well, I mean-
put it on a plan.
Yeah, I mean, if
We'll,
one way or the
we
other.
will know by the time we come back whether it's needed or not, and we can show you
I mean, if
why
you're-
it's needed or why it isn't needed.
I mean, or again, or we could just add a heavier, wider radius and show it right now, it doesn't really,
Yeah,
it's not gonna affect anything.
Yeah,
essentially, we can add one.
But you don't need that, I don't see anything happening down there. So I don't see why it's a problem just to put an easement on there. You
No,
don't need to
no.
be part of the road, just
No.
put a little easement
No, no,
across
so,
the
like I
bottom of
said,
that lot.
Right, I'm saying I'm fine with that, so
There's
basically,
no problem at all.
rather than tightening up, rather than having this radius here, we would actually pick a radius back here and basically connect dot to dot, and swing this type of radius through here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, or just a straight line across showing an easement, that's an easement for the road if necessary, for your turnaround when you have to build your
Yeah, I mean,
turnaround.
we'll leave it for the road usage, for road purpose, you know, again, whether it's drainage or whether it's for the radius.
But I wouldn't go and change a lot line for that.
No, again, it's on that
Yeah.
sloped edge, it won't affect the lot, so again, it doesn't make any.
and then we'll add that grading plan to our
Okay.
plan set.
I think the biggest thing is gonna be the grading itself.
Right, so we want to see an existing topo on that plan, right? You got the
Yeah.
existing, we know you got the existing.
Yeah.
And we want to see on that road grading plan when you come back, we're going to want to see that up 8 to 10 feet, whatever you guys think is necessary to be able to satisfy the fire department from being able to go down there, drive their truck down there, turn around and go up. They need to be able to do that.
Yes, and we want them to be able to do it because we want to put houses here.
Yeah, no, you'll be fine.
So Tom, I think you alluded at the last meeting that, I think, well, for one thing, I think we can agree that while the road is vastly improved for what it was, it certainly wouldn't meet current specs. And that as part of this approval, we would be waiving some of the specs for a town road. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And that in other cases in town, for doing that, there's been some consideration given up from the landowner, sort of in, I don't know if the right way to say this, but in trade for that, such as common land or putting land into conservation or potentially no further subdivision. So I guess I'm wondering whether the landowner would consider any of those as part of a possible approval from the board. And maybe before I ask that, does the board have any comments on that idea?
It's Barbary.
I think there's an
it's a
awful
give and-
big
it's a
lot
give-
back there
it's a
to
give and
restrict
take.
still.
So like Tom, you brought this up last time. I'm just, kind of bringing that up again. And other projects in town have, in order for someone to get approval, the landowner has given up something as I guess, a benefit to maybe some of the abutters or some of the people in that area in order to get approval and to get waivers.
I think I can speak to that a little bit. I mean,
Okay.
we've already given up something where we added this culvert that wasn't there.
So, I don't know, I would argue that that's not.
That's more
a
road
lot.
maintenance.
That's road maintenance stuff. You brought it up to, you brought the road up to a better condition. My
Yeah, and it
perspective.
was Also, the drainage was designed not to need that, and the road agent asked for it, we complied.
Sure, and that's all, that's fantastic, right? And that's gonna benefit the neighborhood. I'm just wondering if there's anything else that maybe the board would,
How many acres is the back lot still?
Ends up being 40 some odd,
Yeah.
42.
I mean, the most that he could subdivide that into would be another 8 lots if they did it by current zoning, and I don't think we should restrict that, because that's big land up there. It's huge. It's what, our zoning is already restricting that.
So
But the access to it is,
if somebody came in.
The
here-
access would have to be brought up to do that.
If he
so-
came in and wanted to subdivide all of that, you know, as much as you could in that zone, I think the board, at least now, would maybe question that based upon that road. And there's only so much that you can do with that road. So I'm one person on this board.
If he's gonna
and
bring it up, I mean, I would think that that's a substantial amount more. I mean, that's where I would get into, I would be looking for pavement.
But even pavement, the steepness of it, right? It's.
Have you been up Cotton Valley Road?
I'm just,
It's
you know,
New England.
the road is there, right? But I think if this was a raw piece of land and the road wasn't there and there weren't already houses up there, we'd be looking at this differently.
Yeah, I think Doug's got a good point. I think, though, I do think that, you know, Al said it at last meeting too, he is upgrading this road, and I think we are after something. We're after a good association that's established. And I would like to see something, you know, road-wise, but I think what we could note and what you guys may agree to, you know, Al or not, or Tim, would be something like, you're gonna have to bring maybe a note on this plan, any future subdivision of tax map 7 lot 2 would require a road to be up to town specs. Like, there'd be no more subdivision on this not up to town specs road. No further subdivision. So, you know, we are doing some waivers here to get you another lot, basically. But we're not gonna set a precedent to get you another lot next year, you know, without upgrading the road to meet town specs.
Town specs are 8%.
Yep.
That's not gonna, that will never hit town specs. Neither will it. So again, if you're gonna jump into that realm, and I've dealt with this in the past, if you're gonna jump into that realm, you have to jump into that realm with public roads. And your public roads don't meet 8% that are existing. So if you're gonna hold that to a private road association control, you need to hold it to every road, every lot that you have in town for any subdivision. And right off the bat,
For any subdivision, it doesn't include what's already there.
Providence Lake Road alone hits slopes equal to that road. So you're saying that nothing can be re-subdivided on Providence Lake Road?
No, we're not saying that.
Well, you can't separate out, under your zoning regulations, you have public and private allowable.
Yeah.
So if you're saying that I cannot subdivide in the future, that because of it won't meet current standards, that means any road that was developed prior that doesn't meet today's standards is undevelopable.
All right, well, that's your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion, that's how your regs read, it has nothing to do with opinion, that's black and white in your regulations.
No, we disagree with that.
I have your regulations if you're looking to read them.
We're talking a private road versus a non-private road.
It's not necessarily that, we're taking something that you can't fix what's existing.
Correct.
You know, and as much as some people hate the word grandfather, it's already there, and we're already managing it and taking care of it, it's there. But if you're adding 8 more lots, that would be having to bring stuff up to specs, so I think is what we're more looking for. Within and I'm not saying it would have to be to the 8%. The grades, you gotta work with what you got. If you have an existing road, we just wanna bring it in. I can't speak for the board on this entirely, but it'd have to be brought up to a better standard.
But again, I think we've already approached that prior to, outside of changing the grading. Everything else that's been touched is falling within your design guidelines.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
For public and private, so I don't know where else, other than grading, where else you would bring that roadway. And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, if you're saying that you want a specific stipulation that no more subdivision would be done on that property, again,
Without bringing the road up to town specs.
But like he's trying to say is, I don't think you can ever bring it to town.
You can't.
I think,
No, you physically couldn't.
Yeah.
You couldn't make 8% on that, no matter how,
But he's not gonna get 8% anywhere on it, but, I
So-
mean,
but
not an entrance.
he could come in and still do mostly at the town specs. and
Well,
paving.
that's what I'm
Do
trying to say
paving,
is,
do
so you
20
got your slopes that are,
20-something feet wide with
Right.
paving and drainage and everything else, and maybe you can get a variance to how steep it is, possibly, not a variance, but he could get a waiver for the steepness, possibly. But there, in my mind, there'll be no further subdivision without doing that.
again,
That being said, if we were to put a note on there that said, no
it's just
further
how it would have to
subdivision
be
until the
worded.
road is brought to town specs, and we come back 5 years from now, and maybe it's not me, maybe it's not these people sitting at the board, they're gonna see town specs, and they're gonna draw a line in the sand.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Town specs with a waiver, and you don't wanna write that on the plan, possibly no further subdivision without the road being upgraded. And then it throws you into, you gotta meet as many specs as you can. But if another board is sitting here, and they see town specs,
Yeah.
and they say you can't meet 8%, get out.
I agree with that.
It would
Yeah,
put us in a
I
really
agree with
good-
that.
Maybe wording it
put
so
us
that it's
in a really
upgraded to
tough
the,
spot.
well.
to the
again,
best of its ability to town specs.
Again, with that, I'd rather have a specific defined determination now of what. Again, if you're saying, it's a constant moving target, right? Today's regulations aren't gonna be 5 years, they're
Right,
gonna
they
be tomorrow.
change. They do change.
So it's always moving. You know, 8% didn't exist in 86 when this was created. It may change from there again. With regards to the swales, again, in the width of the roadway, right now, we meet your subdivision regs outside of that tail end, which I want to fix. We already meet the width requirements based on sub-collector, collector roads, what we're connecting into. I guess the question is, what else would you want upgraded so I can have an understanding of what you're asking for before I don't like a moving target because it's hard for me to figure out what I'm judging against.
All right, you don't like a moving target, I understand that, but please, we're talking about it amongst the board. Don't
Okay,
answer
sorry.
every question now. Let us communicate a little
Okay.
bit, and we'll ask you if
Okay.
you want to raise your hand because you want to comment on something, go ahead. But I can tell you that the road right now is nowhere near anything that we would do for more than one lot. There's telephone poles right in the middle of the right of ways in spots. There's all kinds of issues with it being anywhere, you know, to make it work for a future subdivision. So, you know, we can give you a lot here right now, or we can tell you we're gonna want our regulations to stand the way they are right now. You know, and that would be it, and be a done deal, and we hope you'd still do the right thing and take care of your association. I do believe that I think the biggest part that you are giving the town and the association, the people that already live up there, a good association that can maintain that road and take care of it to make sure it doesn't erode, so it can be plowed in the winter, and for safety for fire trucks to get up there and everything else. But further subdivisions, I know you don't want something on the plan, but we don't want you to come back next year and say, look, you gave me one lot, we just want another lot. We want another lot, and we want another lot. You know, it's gotta end somewhere. It's gotta end on your side, it's gotta end on our side. That's why we have regs, that's why we have zoning. And I understand that nothing's easy, but we still have to, you know, make a decision. And I think this is a good plan, and I do think that, you know, we need to have a couple other, you know, documents or a couple other things. And the things that I have is, you know, say we did approve this, that I think we need some kind of note about a future subdivision. It doesn't have to necessarily be no further subdivision. And it doesn't necessarily have to say that the road has to be up to town specs, but maybe it could say something about, you know, the road. And I think we need our attorney to just look at the association documents, the new documents, that can be done while, you know, you guys are doing subdivision approval. And I also think that we need to bond that upgrade part of the road, a small bond, or maybe can't get a building permit for those couple of lots until,
For the turnaround?
yeah, for the turnaround, until the turnaround's done. You know, something, whether it be a small erosion control bond that we should get, or the, you know, the, small erosion control bond, or tie it to a building permit.
Sure.
Whatever you guys, so those are a few things that I have, that I think, you know, we should consider. But I don't know if you guys want to try to come up with some kind of way to talk about future subdivision, you know, and also, you know, it does look like, you know, any kind of excavation in that area needs a shoreline protection permit, so they have to get a shoreline protection permit to build a house there, I think?
That's outside of the 250 feet.
I think this the 250 foot line?
It's just outside of it.
Yeah, and we
200
still,
down there.
stormwater management within the 500 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, none of those lots are within the shoreline zone. They're in our zone, our
The road,
shoreline.
RT zone, but not
Yeah,
in the
not
250.
within the state.
Because this is 500 feet, that's,
Even the road and our proposed
well, here,
improvements are outside.
right
Well,
here,
no, the-
right here is not outside.
Where the turnaround is.
It's close, but not too worried about that. As long as there's erosion control in place.
So what we're talking about with regard to the future subdivision would be something to the extent that future subdivision could only be approved, or words to that effect, if the road were brought up to as close to town specs as possible, or I don't know how you would word it, but that's what you had in mind, Tom, something like that, without saying it has to meet town specs, given that we've all concluded that there's no way to make that road coming up the hill meet town specs. What about the rest of the road? Except for the grade going up the hill, the rest of it,
That
Is
can
it-
all be, yeah.
that,
Yeah, that
at
can
some
be done.
future point,
Yeah,
that
that
could
can
be
easily be done.
completely within, and maybe we need to specifically
The
deal with
telephone
that hill
pole's probably more of an
area
irritant,
as to
but
what would be acceptable there.
would be for me.
Is that what you had in mind? That's what I thought you were saying, but maybe I'm misinterpreting. If we can't say it has to meet town specs because we know that the grade can never meet town specs, do we separate out the grade and put some requirement on the grade and say that everything else for town specs got to be met? But we accept the fact that the grade is, it's impossible to meet 8%, or, you know, maybe the grade gets steeper in future, but we don't know what changes might happen in the
I
future.
think like when Level Heights went in, they had to pave that. Because that's a pretty steep, that's very steep going up. And they paved it until it planed off, and then the rest of it was dirt, town specs width.
So it's just the grade.
It's
is
really the
only
grades that need to
issue
be-
that would be impossible to meet at some future point, not for this one lot, but for a future subdivision.
Right.
So if we single out the grade and accept the fact that we're willing, you know, I mean, having more lots, more taxes, and it's all good for the town as long as we don't make the situation where we're setting a precedent where we're allowing roads to be crazy.
So I think I'd be okay with that, as long as we were talking about the grade just for this particular hill. I don't know how you say that, but I wouldn't then want something on something recorded to say, oh, they can put in a town spec road and go all the way up
No, it
in
would-
here.
Yeah, it would just
We're
be,
not
I'm only
considering grade.
referring to that one hill, the entrance road only would be
Do
the
you
only
know what I'm
place
saying?
that would it be an exception.
Well, I mean, if they put a subdivision in, wherever the road goes, if it has more, we didn't walk up top, but I mean,
Well, they would have to meet town specs unless somebody waives it in the future, anyway.
Right, I guess I just wouldn't want something on a
Right.
plan to say, as long as they meet town specs, except for the grade,
Yeah.
a future board might.
I was
be
only
okay.
referring to that entrance
Understood.
area,
Yep,
period.
Yep, yep,
And it would have to specifically say that on the plan.
yep.
Peter, we've already opened up the public portion and already closed it.
Well, there's been more discussion that invites more public comment, I would think. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Tom, I understand.
Okay.
The other thing too is we could just word it that any further subdivision would require the current board to review the road again
Exactly.
and leave it up to the board at that time. They'll have, you could put a requirement that they have to do a site walk first so that they get out there and see it.
We don't need to do that, but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't subdivide roads, we don't subdivide lots on non-approved or up to town spec roads because we have many, many miles and camp roads all over the place why we don't do it. So we gotta not necessarily get something for it, but we gotta protect,
Agreed.
our people that are there, that's all. And I think Al's trying to do that. But we're gonna need something, Al and Tim, that type of note on the plan, which I think that may work, what David had suggested. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
Yep.
So what would the note say that,
Any further subdivision would require a road, the road be reviewed.
Yeah, extensive road review or something like that.
but that's a requirement already.
Right. It is a requirement.
But if you put that in the note, then any other board, if none of us are here, they're gonna say, hey, why is there a red flag on that plan? And they're gonna go out and they're gonna look and they're gonna see.
But if he comes in
So-
5 years from now and wants to subdivide 2 more lots off,
Yep.
the board's obligated to look at the road. They have to look at the road because the specs say you can't build a road that isn't, you can't subdivide without, even if we put no note on it.
So in that case, then why are we arguing?
Because we want to be sure that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
I don't think it's going to be, because it's a back road, it's a camp road, and I don't know, anybody that's gonna run for a planning board is gonna be on board and understanding that everything we do is about preserving the waterways in the town. It's right next to the water, it's steep going to the water, it's gonna set up red flags for anyone on this board.
I don't know. It
I
seems
agree,
like
leave
that's-
it alone,
Just leave it alone.
leave it alone. What'll
Leave it.
happen when they come in, it's an automatic, like Dick said, it's an automatic, they go through a review again
Yes.
if they wanted to do it.
We
Why
have
pull
zoning,
off?
we
Leave it
already
alone.
have rules in place that it's gonna put it in.
But we've
in spec.
already waived the requirement with the approval of this lot. That's what we're talking about. We're gonna waive the requirement that that road meet town specs and approve a subdivision on a road that doesn't meet town specs. We've had other people in here where we've turned that down
Right.
and said, no, you can't do that. You can't subdivide unless you bring the road up to town specs. So all I'm saying is, I think it needs to be more than just left alone.
Well, they have an existing road. Some of the ones that have come in didn't have an existing road. They're upgrading the road, so they're helping bring the road to
Right.
better standards.
Agreed.
So, that's part of the negotiation here. We're trying to get everything to a better non-compliant.
Cause you'll never get it. to
It's
comply.
never gonna comply.
The
And
only
and
thing
I don't know
that
if you
they
noticed,
can't
but these
comply
lots are
with-
gonna have amazing views, so I'm sure they're gonna get hit well for the view tax.
But the only thing that they can't comply with is the grade on that road. If it weren't for the grade on that
They
road,
could comply.
the electric pole could be moved and,
Right.
all of that could be done. So all I'm saying
Yeah,
is,
it could have the S-turn that it's almost designed to have, which would keep things a little slower and not straight down to the road. So there are some things that could make it better, there's no doubt.
I mean, I want to sit here and approve this lot. But I also want to be sure that if a future subdivision of those 40 some odd acres comes in, that we've already flagged for some future board, that road, that's a problem. We've already understood that the grade on that road's a problem, and there are other issues with the road that if you're gonna make another subdivision, that has to get taken care of, except we're willing to accept the grade, and we think that.
I mean, you
that-
gotta,
that's fine.
I look at the other side of it too. You only have X amount of lots paying to maintain that road right now. So if we're adding lots, then they'll have more to upgrade. the
That's
lot.
my point. I'm not quite sure I understand if you put 10 more lots out there, or however many that you could put, what's it gonna change of that road with the 10 lots that are there? You're adding 10 more cars.
10
Okay.
more cars, but you're adding 10 more people adding to the pool to maintenance it.
Well, that's what I see, but
So-
I'm not quite sure what changes by adding more house lots to that if it was ever in the future. The road is still it's not going to change, you're never gonna change the grade, so what makes the difference?
I think long term. I think long term in itself is, you know, you get if you added another 10 lots in there, the traffic, they're going to get tired of doing the road maintenance, of fixing the ruts, and eventually they'll want to pave it anyways. So, in time, it'll fix itself. And like now, it's already getting repaired.
Let's hear from the applicant again, see if he's got anything else he'd like to add. You guys got anything else you'd like to add? I'm gonna open it up to the public too, for one more comment, but go ahead, Al, you guys?
Again, I like to have, you know, I'm a black and white guy, you know, again, I read through regulations all the time. I've read through yours multiple times to make sure that I understand what it is. I guess what I feel like I'm doing right now is normally, again, I try to come in ahead, talk to everybody in the groups. We've met with the board prior, in a pre-subdivision meeting. I've met with the fire department, police department, highway department, and I've tried to be proactive in working on this road. You know, it's an ugly road. I think we've tried to upgrade and clean up some of the stuff. The road has been maintained in the past, certainly not to, you know, town standards with regards to the grading. It never will meet today's town standards for grading. But with that being said, there's a lot of roads, including ones right around here that don't meet 8%, that are town roads, that don't meet town requirements with regards to swales, drainage, slopes, 2% off the center line, and these are town roads already. I do understand your concern about having issues with the road and overburdening what's there. But I think there are also limitations within the site itself that just don't allow for everything to be perfect, no matter what you do. Again, I'm willing to work with everybody. I think I've already tried to show that with what I've been doing over there, just as a baseline. But at some point in time, it won't make any sense to do anything to it. And I have to find that balance. Again, we've surveyed the entire road. We've done new regulations for the beach, new regulations for the roadway itself. We're working on a plan again, once it's all finalized, to turn over to the association. So they have not only the association agreement, but as well, they have the association plan. They'll have all the bounds have been found, and if not found, they've been reinstalled. So again, I think as someone coming in to try to do presently one additional lot, I think I've stepped up to the plate, is my personal opinion. Again, I understand the concept of future subdivision, but with that being said, you have town roads that don't meet town specs right now. And to say that this...
Got it. You got anything new? Anything different than that? We got that part.
Okay. I just wanted, again, explain how that needs to follow through on all roads.
I didn't officially probably close it properly with the to the public. So any public comment? Go ahead, Peter first.
Yeah, great appreciation. Sitting here for 15 minutes makes me realize how happy I am not to be involved with these boards anymore. But I would like to just stress that, you know, new innovations come along all the time. regulations change constantly. I don't think it's appropriate for this board to try and assume the future. Silcox expressed what I was going to express. I mean, that's for a future board to decide based on the regulations and the technology that they have at the time. You know, right now, you can't foresee what they're gonna have for paving technologies or whatever, you know, or for vehicles. So I think it's for the moment right now, and then if they come back next year, want another lot, then the board should look at it and say, hey, you just came here last year. We told you the road, you know, anybody can look at the minutes or the video and see. So I just think that, great appreciation for what you're doing, but I think it's a little overkill.
Jeff, you had something?
All I was gonna say is, why can't you just make it a requirement if you guys are concerned about letting future people know about potential, put in the deed, have them, and then it's recorded in the registry, people can find it.
John?
I think what Peter said makes more sense. Control.
You really think
Come back
Pete
in another
Jensen, I
year or
mean
two.
George Jetson is gonna come around and use spaceships to fly up to the house?
We've got roads in this town.
China hasn't bought the meadows yet.
Have you ever gone down the access road?
Yes, I have, John.
That's steeper than what's going up there.
Yes, it is, John.
So, you know, you can't do anything with it. The worst
And
part
John,
of
we
it
would,
is
we
you come off
would
the hill.
we would not allow a subdivision on that road. Our current regulations don't allow a subdivision on that road. It's steeper, I understand. But if somebody come in with an application, we're gonna look at it, we're gonna look on the merits of it. So we know there's steeper spots, we know there's stuff like that happening everywhere. We're talking about this specifically.
Right now, you can't control what's gonna happen 5 years from now. The gentleman comes in 5 years and wants to subdivide the rest of that property, that's when that board can adjust the issue. When you get, the worst part of that subdivision right now is the entrance coming in. Once you make that right-hand turn where the chain is, it isn't that bad up through there. And you're not gonna do anything with the entrance, that's what it is, it's ever gonna be.
It can be
Unless
paved.
you want to put an elevator in.
It can be paved. It could be in the center of that right of way versus where it is now. The telephone poles could be out of the right of way. You could have a nice sweep the way the road was originally laid out. The right of way was laid out. So there are a lot of ways it could be better. A lot of ways.
Right now, you've got, what, 4 houses up there, 3. So you're gonna control the traffic too a little bit. When he comes in, when he was come in, if he was to subdivide further, in 2 or 3 years or 4 years, a man may never want to subdivide the rest of it, who knows?
I agree. I agree, John.
So
All
what
right, I'm
about
gonna
a
close the
simple,
public portion of
Okay.
the meeting.
what about a simple note on the drawing that the approval of this board is for that one lot, recognizing that we're waiving with the waivers on the road, not meeting town specs, and just make it clear that in the future, they're on their own with whoever's sitting here at this table. As opposed to trying to be more specific than that, I think that meets everybody, what everybody's saying. We're approving, and we're not setting any precedent about any future subdivision. We're approving one subdivision based on the road improvements that the developer, the applicant, is willing to make at this time and able to make at this time. That's the end of the story. And that at least points it out on the drawing that we're doing this, it's a trade-off. Road improvements, road doesn't meet town specs, but we're doing this one lot. In the future, you know, you're on your own in terms of whoever's sitting here, and whatever the regulations, they may be different at that point, and likely will be different in 4 or 5 years. Would that satisfy the requirement that we point out the fact that it's limited to this one lot based on the road improvements, which still don't bring the road up to town specs, and that any future subdivision would have to stand on its own merits, and we're not setting any precedent? Because that's the only thing we're doing, we're approving one
Correct.
lot. As long as that, I would be satisfied as long as it's clear that that doesn't set any precedent for future. And then hey, whatever people want done in the future, that's between the developer and whatever board is sitting at that.
I'd be okay with that, I think.
So can you?
You know, can you
Word that?
rephrase that?
Yeah, can you
I was
put
hoping
that
he
in
could
a-
word it. He
in
can
a
have it
simple
right.
note? Can you put that in a simple note?
What's the shorthand version of
Just a
that?
reg, so we know which ones we're gonna waive.
You know me, I don't have a shorthand
I
version.
know.
Okay, so Doug, help me out here.
Well, what you said, let me tell you
Yeah,
what you said
yeah.
and see if
You don't want me
can-
to do it.
When you first said it was perfect. First two sentences.
Yeah,
I don't
first-
remember
the
exactly.
first-
That's what my wife says too.
First sentence.
You're approving one
So this-
subdivision based on the road improvements. Limited to the one lot based on road improvements does not set any precedent for the future. That's what you'd said.
For future subdivision,
Period.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
It-
that's
it
simple.
Highlights it, puts a red flag on it.
It's not saying no to
And it's
anything.
up to the future, some future board anyway. But it puts a red flag on it and it's clear that the one lot doesn't give you a leg up going forward. That whatever new subdivision may come in will stand on its own merits.
So limited to the one lot based on road improvements does not set any precedent for the future subdivisions.
I would be okay with
Okay.
wording like that if it went on the plan in some official place so that it's part of the approval, not just in the minutes.
That's what,
Right on the recording.
Right. Then it's, everybody can see it and, right.
How do you feel about that, Tim?
I'm okay with it. I guess the better question would be how's Al feel about it? I think it's just saying, we're approving this, that's all we're looking at,
And then
You've
if
come in and
you
asked for
another
one lot.
thing, You go
and
through the
we've
same
approved it.
process.
and we're
So,
taking Pete's advice, we're not worrying about the future. This is what we're looking at, this is what
And
we're.
if you come in the future, you go through the
Which you have to
regulations.
anyway.
That you gotta anyway.
so for simplicity, what I would recommend is identifying the one new lot because it has a lot number.
Okay, that's
Has
fine.
the lot, and then reference the improvements as proposed on this plan as the improvements that you're referencing, because otherwise
Right.
you're not referencing anything.
Yep,
That way-
okay.
That way, that lot is tied to those improvements specifically, so that is the give and take
Sure.
Right.
for that lot.
Right.
Here's the improvements that, and actually it's improvements right in front of that lot, so it all ties together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, now you're referencing the lot, you're referencing the specific improvements and nothing else, so that way, at some future date, if anything ever does happen, if I sell it, if someone else decides to do something, you know, then you can discuss improvements.
Well, you're gonna
in front
add
of
the
those lots.
road plan, the grading plan
Correct.
for the whole road
Right, but that's,
in the,
but that's-
that'll be part of the
that's more-
package.
That's more of the whole package.
Right,
Than it
right.
is specifically for this lot.
Right.
I'm in agreement with him.
So you want the motion to say, or the future motion to add the lot number on here as part of the motion?
Yes, so that
the
would
new
be lot,
Yeah,
is
no
it
one's made a
838?
motion yet, but
Well,
Yes.
I think you kind of,
it'd be.
Well,
we're formulating, we're
8-38.
formulating it, so if you have a good sentence, they will be looking for it. Add that.
838
Add a
is,
lot to it.
8-38 would be the new lot.
8-38.
I assume that's the new one, yeah, right.
Pass that to the surveyor.
So the lot on the end is the new one.
Correct, 838.
Yep.
You have something that the approval of lot 838 is continued to the improvements as shown on the plans in front of the section of 838 of Silver Hill Drive.
Well, it's not just the T,
No,
it's
the road, the whole road.
The whole road work that you're talking about, cutting the hump out further back. I mean, that's all part and
Right,
parcel.
it's all in front of those three lots. So-
In front of the 3 lots.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's tied to 838, and it's the road improvements in front of the lots as being subdivided.
No.
As shown on sheet 4.
Yeah, it's the whole, it's whatever you're showing us for road improvements, is my understanding, right? I mean, there was stuff being done on the road more than just in front of that one lot.
Yes.
Well, the other stuff was all just maintenance, so, if that's what you're talking
I
about.
thought you were regrading further back and,
A little bit, yeah,
What? Yes.
yeah, so.
Part of building.
It's whatever's shown on that road grading plan that you're gonna include in this package. That's what we're approving this lot with that work included, right?
What, you guys are still talking about the note on the plan, right?
Correct.
And that note on the plan applies to the whole road
Right.
that you own, that Silver Hill owns right now. It applies to the whole thing, not just specifically in front of any lot. It's just stating out that this lot, we're approving this specific lot with that note.
Right.
Nothing about where, the beginning of the road, end of the road.
We were just referencing where the improvements were, was all we were saying.
That has nothing to do with this note, though.
Oh, okay.
It's,
He had said that originally, so.
it's part of the package. There's a fourth drawing that's gonna be added, which is gonna show the regrading of the road, the whole road, I assume.
Well,
Regrading.
No.
Wherever you're gonna regrade. So it's
But is that
whatever's
pl-
in the package.
Is that plan gonna show how the road is, the slope on the whole road that currently is existing there?
It does, but the
Okay.
regrading is only in here.
Yep.
Right.
so, I'm sorry, Richard, I'm working on just what we're gonna waive.
Okay.
So I didn't hear exactly what you guys talked about. So we got the note down, the first note down.
Right,
That I think we all have a consensus on.
right.
And then I was looking for, through the zoning, what we're gonna waive.
What are we waiving?
And I think we have an option here we have Article 6.01, roadways in general. We can waive, that 6.01 and 6.02. We can waive those two regs. And not, I don't know how we should put it, but it's not like we probably don't meet all of them, but there are a few it does meet. So I was thinking, so we just waive those two for the ones that they don't meet. It obviously don't, you know what I'm trying to say? Or if we should be that specific on every one of these, like 6.01, number 1. Okay, it doesn't meet number 2, it doesn't meet number 3, but it meets number 4. It meets number 5, but it doesn't meet number 6, number 7. So if we can come up with just some wording that doesn't meet town regs, so we're just waiving, we'll waive the sections of 6.01 and 02 that the roadway does not meet. The standards that the roadway does not meet.
The improved roadway doesn't meet.
No, the roadway doesn't. The roadway has to be up to town specs.
Right.
Well, we can't do a subdivision.
No, I'm saying
without waiving.
the plan he's
the
gonna
regular.
show us is gonna be an improvement over what is there now. It still won't meet certain parts of the
Correct.
town spec. That was my only point.
We can't just waive no hot topping. We gotta waive the width. The
Right,
roadway is now. We gotta waive all kinds of things, but I don't wanna waive both tables or both sections of our roadway standards.
Yeah, because, some of these standards talk about, like road associations, right? You don't want to
Right.
waive that if this is what he's
Correct.
doing to help.
Correct. So I think we just should waive portions of 6.01
Yep.
and 6.02 that are applicable to this roadway.
Yep. I'm good with that.
All right?
Yeah, all right.
You got that?
I am getting it.
Okay. So, and then as far as, did I hear somebody say earlier that there's beach rights for these lots that are there existing?
The existing
Yes,
lots
it's
have
existing.
beach rights, the new lot will not.
Okay, and you guys
That
know
was a
that?
separate.
Okay.
Is that noted on the drawing, that the new lot doesn't have beach rights?
I don't believe it's noted on the drawing, and it can be.
I would think it should be on the drawing.
Or would that be in the deed? So
It's in the deed,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's in the deed, but
It's all on the local and state statute, so, but it can be added on there as a note.
it's
Yeah,
definitely.
I think it should be on there as a note, because if you were asking us to approve that, that would be something we would have to, an additional thing we would have to waive, because that, you
Or
couldn't do it.
you'd need a variance probably.
Right.
Because I'm
That-
sure there's
that
not a
goes
lot
out- That goes outside of you, right, the
Right,
state, you wouldn't
right.
follow state.
It's state by state law, we can't give it beach rights, so you can add a note, piece of cake.
All right, so add a note, and I think it should be a note that it'll be in the deed also, in the same note. And how about, do we want an erosion control bond or anything on that turnaround? I'm okay with it, but I think we need to tie it to something that, if you go get a building permit, before you can get a building permit for the new lot, that the fire department has to be okay, or somebody's gotta be okay with somebody being on a turnaround down
I
there.
would think Victor should be able to.
And I like that better than, other
Yeah.
than a bond. I think that seems reasonable to tie it to the building permit for that new lot.
All right?
Is that,
That's typical.
yeah.
Yeah, it's either tied to building permit or CO, so.
So when you do the road plan, are you going to indicate that section going down back to Bonnyman Road is going to be abandoned
To be abandoned.
and
going back
reforested
to-
or revegetated?
Yes.
Can we tie that work to a building permit for that new lot? 'Cause honestly, I think that's pretty important as far as the lake's concerned, that road wouldn't have, runoff running down it over, regular gravel and stuff.
Well,
I
they
know that's been
have-
a problem in the past.
So that road falls in the 250 foot. So do you have to pull a state permit for that? So to reclaim that section of the road, you're going to be doing site work.
To just vegetate it? No.
No.
You wouldn't dig up the.
I wouldn't
Gravel
do
that's there,
that.
just leave it?
Gravel. Then you would need a permit.
Where you going to what?
Yeah, but why would you
hydro-seed it?
dig that up? You'd just cover it.
To make
You'd
it more
erosion
pervious.
control it, put some blueberry bushes out there.
I'm
and-
sure it's subject to interpretation, but Victor knows more about it than I think any of us, and he says, I think we're okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good. So that, just a note
If
on
you
the
were
plan.
removing all the gravel, that
Yeah,
would throw.
no, I mean,
everything
they're
in.
going to have to put silt fences up, I'm sure, just to do it, so. Right, something,
Fence or the
yeah. The logs,
mulch stuff,
the mulch logs there, or whatever they are.
Erosion control.
the stump grindings.
So so you gotta come back in front of us
Mhm.
again, so we can see, if we're gonna conditional, I think, or we're gonna vote on a conditional approval, subject to these other things. And you should show a little bit of erosion control on that plan. All right, silt fence somewhere, silt sock or something, especially down on that lower end, where you're gonna fill it in a lot and where you're gonna, cover that road. So we'll be able to see that when he comes in with that. We don't need a full-blown road profile, but we do need at least an elevation change to show the elevation of the new turnaround versus the old turnaround.
And I'll add it tonight, so
Yep.
it's 80% done, we just clean it up and put it as part of the plan.
So I'll entertain a motion that we conditionally approve the lot line adjustment and minor subdivision for tax map 8, lot 31, and 32 in tax map 7-2 on Silver Hill Road with the following conditions. Condition 1, Priscilla, if you'd be so kind to read it, which would be what Richard wanted.
Just a second, okay. Okay. A condition limited to this one lot, 838, based on specific road improvements shown on the road grading plan. This does not set a precedent for future subdivisions.
Okay, and number 2,
The waiving,
no condition on state subdivision approval. Number 3, on our on the association documents, be reviewed by our attorney within 3 weeks. When's our next meeting?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Is it 2 weeks?
17th.
17th, yes.
Rick's not on vacation, is he? And the 4th plan / roadway plan showing the plan showing the new notes for number 1 and for what was the other note we wanted on the plan?
The abandonment of,
No, it was
There'd be no beach rights.
No beach
Yeah,
right?
no beach rights.
all right, and I think that's everything I had. And what was the last one? Waiving the waivers for the roadway section.
portion of both 601 and 602 that are applicable to the roadway.
Okay. I'd entertain that motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Who,
Any further discussion? Not hearing it, Charles? Nothing?
Move along.
You're close.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing it. Unanimous.
Thank you.
you make me write fast.
Thanks, guys, for coming in.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a conditional use permit application submitted by Jeffrey Denley for property owned by Susan Denley located at 2305 Wakefield Road, tax map 166-1. The applicant is seeking approval of a conditional use permit for agritourism/wedding venue. The applicant would like to turn the farm into a facility where the barn can be used for community events and weddings. They would like to expand the farm to be a working farm with livestock, pick your own greenhouses, pick your own greenhouses and Christmas trees.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Please. Thank you.
Board recognizes Jeff Denley.
If the map wasn't blocked, I can tell you. It's in the ag zone.
Yeah.
Dagger.
Yeah, it's, it's right here.
Go ahead, Jeff, explain to us what you want to do.
Well, last time we talked, you guys basically wanted to know about, you know, talking to the police department about having somebody direct traffic. I went down there the other day, they said no problem, you know, it's just a certain rate, 3 hour minimum. You know, give them a couple weeks notice, basically that was the gist of that. And we propose to have like an event ahead signage, like, you know, those orange triangle signs, diamond signs. One down the hollow, kind of like where Dave used to have a shop. And then another one down at the corner of our field, right by the Milners. And then another one right by the Episcopal Church. The distances you see here are, I used a rangefinder from the back of the barn to all the butters, different houses, for if anybody was concerned about how close it was going to be to their house or whatever. And yeah, I don't know what else you needed from me.
So in the conceptual review, nothing was binding, but we gave you some of those ideas. It sounds like you know, checked into the police department. I don't know what else, if anybody can, usually, Victor, I know you probably gave us any minutes from that, what we had talked about?
One of them was talking to the state about
There's a package in there for Denver.
one of them was talking to the state about the current driveway and if that would cut it. Haven't done that yet because I want to make sure that it's going to be,
Is that the driveway that goes out back?
yeah, it goes behind the barn.
Is it on a tax map or anything showing your access? The width that they allowed you? So they usually, when you go to get a highway or easement, driveway easement, they give you a width that you can use.
Yeah,
But
that driveway's been there for,
I'm not disagreeing with you, it's,
yeah, no, it's not on anything. It's
But
not on the patio.
you,
It's right here.
how many feet of frontage do you have there?
Fell under in terms
It's like 600?
Probably, at least, yeah.
So,
In zoning?
And then we have an abut, this is our property as well.
I think they want to see like 300 feet, but you should, where it's commercial use, I think they would approve up to a 40, 50 foot wide access, so you should be fine.
some reason I didn't find it.
He's got a field right there, so I would say that we had plenty of access,
Yeah.
as in width.
And another thing, we wouldn't allow parking, obviously, anywhere along the road.
Right.
Goes out into the
That's
field.
all
That's a
off-road
given,
parking,
but
yep.
yeah, it was be all inside the property.
So kind of like the previous events that have happened, the car shows, the weddings and so on. It's
Yeah.
pretty much you're just looking to make it more formal.
Yeah, we want to make it legit, you know what I mean?
I don't see any concerns with it. Hasn't been any issues so far.
So what about, like hours of operation? So you're having a wedding event on a Saturday, what hours would you expect it to be operated in?
Typically, like I had my wedding there. Our ceremony was at 4. We had it there.
Yeah,
And then the reception started, now it's 6. And then most bands, DJs, anything like that, call it quits between 9 and 10 anyways. They won't go any later than that. So the music would be, it'd be off by then. And then, you know, usually 10 to 11 people are, if not earlier.
okay.
And when I spoke to the police department, they said, you know, it was a 3 hour minimum, so if I had them there at 4 when people were showing up, it would just make sense to have an officer there the entire time,
Sure.
rather than have them leave for
Sure.
an hour to come back.
Yeah.
You know, it just makes sense to have them there the whole time. And he said it'd be no problem. They would direct traffic, have a cruiser out by the road.
Yeah.
And it'd be only on Saturday nights during the wedding season. You know, it's not
Okay.
not gonna be not gonna heat the barn.
So you're expecting like probably once a week type thing?
Hopefully.
Yeah, sure.
Probably from May until September.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
after that, it's too cold.
Okay. What about like bathroom facilities? How do you handle that, or what's the plan for that?
In the past, we've had porta potty facilities,
Okay.
but in the future, we want to actually have, you know, legit handicap accessible bathrooms.
Okay.
So pending this, that's going to be talking to Victor,
Yeah.
making sure that everything's up to code
Yeah.
when it comes to the facility and everything like that.
Victor, could you just refresh my memory as to where on the zoning tables this falls?
Oh, yes.
For some reason,
So maybe
Does
under
anybody want to
arts.
see the other minutes?
Was there?
The last one.
Actually,
Good.
You want to see the minutes from the last
event-
time?
no, it was actually, we were going through
Right here.
Yeah, but it was under,
Arts, recreation, entertainment, community center, meeting hall, reception hall.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, got it.
So it's under arts, recreation, entertainment, and there's a section
That's why I didn't.
for community center, meeting hall, reception hall, and other places for
Right,
public
okay.
assembly.
Yeah.
Which
okay.
page is that on? That's
community center, reception.
Page 9.
since it's ag, it's conditional.
It's conditional use on agriculture.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't scroll
And
down.
obviously, any farming that would take place, it's already zoned for that anyway,
Yeah.
so.
As far as the way that the permit's worded, I don't know, I don't want to say concerned, but just the fact that it says, like, you know, Christmas trees, et cetera, like, what's et cetera, right? So I don't know if the board wants to approve et cetera, but if we, maybe if we could limit this conditional use to just a wedding venue? I don't know.
Because that's already approved. It's already,
It's already in our zoning, what they.
yeah.
Sure, sure, so,
So all the rest
This
of
is
that,
mainly just for
right.
the barn, to have events there, basically.
okay, so
I think
maybe
that's all
just
he's trying
say,
to say is like, let's just narrow this down so it's more
Yeah.
just the events instead of
Yeah.
putting all the other stuff in there because it's already approved for that stuff.
Right.
yeah, does that make sense? Like, if we were to go forward and approve this, and maybe part of the wording of approval would be, this is for specifically community events such as weddings in the barn.
I mean, we could
Or
put the
on the
Christmas trees
property.
in there too. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to be cutting them, not growing them. Like,
No, down the
Or-
road, I want to grow them on some of the back lots.
Okay.
but,
well, there's a lot of acreage there.
Understood, I have no problem with
But he
any
can
of
do
that.
that
I just-
now.
Right.
We don't need to, he doesn't need a conditional use
Correct,
permit to grow
correct.
Christmas
Right.
trees.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you need them to sell them either.
When I spoke with the secretary downstairs, she said just be as specific as you can what your plan was with
Yep.
the property in the
Right.
future. So
No, I think that's fine, but
Well, you
that's
got
not what
ETC
we're,
in here twice.
that's
Is
not
that
what we're
being
issuing a
specific?
permit on. It's
Obviously, you didn't
strictly
listen to
use
it.
of the barn.
Right,
I said you got et cetera in here twice. That wasn't listening. You weren't very specific.
well, I mean,
I think you were very specific, but you
can
just
do all
didn't need to
that.
add those two, et cetera.
Approved for the wedding.
I think that's Doug's only concern, what else we're approving, but I think it's obvious that, you know, what we are approving here, and we can.
let's just make it
When we
obvious.
do- Right,
that's
when
all.
we do that condition, when we approve it,
Yeah.
we're approving, you know, we're approving this note, really, under arts and recreation and entertainment, we're approving community center, meeting hall, recreation hall, and other places for public assembly, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
what
yeah,
we're approving.
Yep, I'm good with
And
that.
as far as the rest of the stuff, the farming goes, we can make a note, Doug, in the same thing that
It's already allowed.
farm is allowed.
Yep.
So that way we're
Yep.
not in conflict with his application.
Okay. The other thing that, I guess, once the board is done speaking, I would be interested to hear what possibly any of the neighbors might have as far as
We're
comments.
gonna open it up to the public.
Understood,
Yeah.
right? But just based on that, there may be some other things that we would want to think about.
Yeah, it's still pretty early, and Charlie doesn't like to go home early on Thursday night, so we're gonna be here a while. You got anything else, Jeff, you want to add? You guys have anything else before we open it up to the public? Open it up to the public for any public comment. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. First of all, the neighbor across the street, Peter Casper. Known the Denleys for a long time. I wish Jeff the best with his endeavor. We did talk a few years ago, Mr. Blackwood and myself, we had a discussion, the difference in farming. Some people think that farming is farming. Then there's farming commercially as in event type. And all I'm hoping for is that the traffic is looked at in detail, because if you put something in like a corn maze that sees 1,500, 2,000 people come on a weekend or a day, there's a lot more traffic than you see somebody coming to pick a couple pumpkins. You know, and I think that it just has to be looked at in that merit, and I agree with what you're saying. It's a great place for a wedding. My daughter got married there, so I'm not gonna argue against that. All I'm asking for is that consideration is brought in about heavy volumes of traffic, not 50 to 60 cars, who cares? But when you start talking, you know, 500,000 people or more coming to an event, that takes farming from farming into an event situation. You take a look at a farm up north, used to sell them apples, Sherman Farm. That is a total event. They've got carnivals out there. It's gone from a corn maze to carnivals and everything else. They see a lot of people. And before you get to that stage, it needs to be looked at in detail for that kind of effect. And the other thing that I would just say is, if it's only being limited to the barn area, your abutters notices, I'm assuming that's why the yellow highlights here, probably good. But I would be concerned if it's expanding out to anything beyond that area, because then you haven't notified the other abutters, I think. I'm not good on that, but that's a word of caution.
Yeah, we are the other abutters.
Okay. Well, you can't be your only abutter. I mean, I don't think legally you can be your own abutter. There has to be somebody beyond. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't
If you're
care.
going on to another lot, like if what you're saying.
If he goes on to the
this
back lot,
lot's a
then yes, he
parking
would, but if
path
they're
over
keeping
this
it to
lot,
that one lot,
That's what I'm
Right.
saying, you know,
Yep.
use caution with that. I don't care one way or the other. That's not my endeavor. I'm just throwing that out there for you. But good luck with it, Jeff, and I hope you have those 1,000 cars. You do.
Well, I don't know, that sounds like too much fun. Go ahead, man.
Hi, I'm Hillary. We're neighbors next door. I was just wondering if there'd be a restriction on what time the sound could actually go until. Like, some weddings go pretty late into the night, and we just don't want to have lots of hooting and hollering all through the night. Just have like a set time that they're allowed to.
We don't have any restrictions on sound control in this town at all.
No.
So I wouldn't be up for that, because that would set a precedence that we need to have a zoning ordinance that would have sound. So we don't have that at the moment. And that would be something, if you all wanted to do that, that's up to you. But as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't think that that would have any bearing.
Okay.
But with that being said, we don't want to be bad neighbors.
Yeah.
And like when we booked the band for our wedding, they were pretty much, they're like, we're pulling the plug at 9:30, and it doesn't matter what you're paying us. That's when it. So.
Would you limit the time? No.
They could voluntarily.
Well, that being said, because Jeff and I will be there at these events, and you know we want to go home as well, so we won't want to be there
This
till
isn't
midnight.
this isn't going to be 2 o'clock all night ragers. So.
Get no Jeff.
You said it.
Not anymore.
Any other public comment? Not hearing any, we'll close the public portion and we can get on through the criteria. There's 7 criteria or 8 criteria for conditional use
Dave,
permit.
can I have this?
I'll swoop that special exception under, what page is it on there? Oh, 75.
75.
So, number 1. So we gotta vote on each one of these, we're gonna choose to vote on each one individually. You guys good with that on this one? The proposed use shall be only those allowed in the ordinance by conditional use permit. Got it? Meets it?
Meets it.
Yes.
Meets it under that table. Number 2, so do you want to vote on that, or you want to go down through them? Or you want to vote on each one?
I think.
We'll go down through them. The proposed use is or are consistent with the adopted master plan. And we're not changing a farm, so that
No, it's
somewhat
It's
consistent.
consistent.
The rural character's
Right.
staying
Yep.
the
Right.
same. Number 3, the specific site is in an appropriate location and of adequate size for the use.
Easily.
Yes.
Number 4, the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located. Not talking about changing any structures or anything. Number 5, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
I think they're addressing that with the police and then having to follow up with, I think, the state as far as the driveway permit.
So is that part of the conditional use, that events be handled consistently with whatever the police want? I mean, you've already talked to the police chief.
Yeah, he said, the officer I spoke to said it's basically up to you, but we would be more comfortable having, you know, a uniformed officer there with.
You gotta think though too, you don't wanna mandate that they gotta do it on every wedding when you have a wedding with only 60 people showing up. That's not gonna be a lot of
Right,
cars.
that's the
I mean,
question.
I'm just
No,
saying
but-
that they're gonna be
but-
different on every one, so.
No, but like part of the contract, we would say that it's a requirement for us that A, you have insurance, B, you know, you have an officer at the entrance
That's-
to direct traffic. Whether or not you guys want to make us do that or not, like, that's what we're.
But it can be a tough location at the top of the hill there with
Right.
traffic going
And, yeah,
down the
and
two
that's why I want to have
streets.
a
So,
up there.
Yeah, and it's gonna make it easier for the customers to come and go too, right?
Yeah, and like when we had our wedding, we had over 200 people there, and there was never a backup at all, you know. The only time I could see it being, that there'd be a lot of traffic showing up all at once
Mhm.
was if, you know, a huge convoy from the church or from another, you know, where the ceremony took place.
Sure.
But we had our ceremony there, so people kind of just trickled in, but.
And that's usually over pretty quick.
Yeah. But there'd be, you know, an officer there directing traffic, so.
so then conditional use would be appropriate traffic control.
Yeah. And I mean, we could put cones along,
Yeah, whatever,
along the side. of the road.
whatever the,
Whatever it is.
whatever the police
As long as it's appropriate for
want.
what you have
Yeah.
Right.
going on. I mean, if it gets really big, and let's just say you did some corn maze out there and you had that 1,500 cars coming in, you'd have to accommodate.
Yeah. I'd rather have 1,500
Right.
cows, but.
I hope you don't, but.
Number 6, the use will not place excessive or undue burden on town services and facilities. Guys have town water up there, yes, but do you have town sewer?
No town sewer.
No town sewer. I don't see that being an issue.
It'd be a benefit, they'd be using more water, so the town be charging more.
You know, they're gonna pay for a police officer detail, so it isn't like it's gonna be taken away from the police department. Cause we only have a half a police officer, we have more than that, so. How many do we have, Charlie?
I think we have 17
Yeah.
altogether, no,
Right.
not full-time.
And they don't work all at the same time. Number 7, there would be no significant effect resulting from such use upon the public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located.
So the only issue would be the late night thing, and I don't know whether people want anything in there. You seem to be saying that you're not gonna have all-night events.
We're not gonna have concerts there, we're not gonna,
Are you gonna just do Saturday nights only?
I mean, if they want to get married on a Friday night, it's gonna be weekends. You know, most people get married on a weekend. And,
You gotta remember, these guys live there also.
Right.
So then, I mean,
right,
in reality, I mean, this is, the wedding venue is more an upgrade standard to, as for having a, rock concerts there every week.
Right.
yeah. Ralph's not gonna be putting on.
I knew that was coming
I
eventually.
was waiting for that.
I knew that was coming. Pork Valley Productions. Good for him.
Sorry, Ralph, I'm sure he's watching.
It's okay. Good for him.
Do you guys need me to read that one again? Are you good?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Number 8 is not applicable because it's not a boat launch facility. I'll entertain a motion to approve the conditional use permit. It does meet, I think, all 7 requirements.
So
So
moved.
moved. Seconded, I guess.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Any opposed? Unanimous. Everybody said aye. Why do I have to ask? I don't want to get lynched.
Well, the board should wish you luck.
Approved for
Tough,
It's a
tough,
great
good
thing.
summer.
Good for you, good, yes, and family.
It's a great idea. Great idea.
What else we gotta do tonight? I got a deer to go get. That accident was a deer. My wife told me.
Well, no, just Priscilla has a lot of ideas. She really thinks.
The baby, so she's like, I need help.
It's intermittent.
In other words, I gotta go back to the shop and get a record.
Hey,
So I can look it
I'll
up.
call you.
And I wanna do it sooner than later, cause I don't want to be able to float it.
Good size?
So no other conceptual review.
Haven't seen it.
Board business, Wakefield zoning ordinance ADU. You have anything, Vic?
Yeah, we got it from, in your package, you'll find rewritten by Mike Garpy. I received it this morning.
Is it what we wanted?
All right, so can you,
Okay, so what's in blue is what's been changed, or added, I should say.
okay? Set over a public meeting, and I would like to get it on the agenda. I know it was on the agenda tonight, but as of this morning, we didn't really have this. So I'd like us to review it and Victor to put it on the agenda for next meeting. You guys are okay with that?
Yes, I mean, we had talked about maybe making it a conditional permit for R2, if it was to be a detached structure. I don't know if the board is still in favor of adding such language. I certainly would be.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to get it something actually written in the ordinance itself. I mean, along with the tables too, as a use.
Oh.
No, that would be in the table. Yeah,
So
if we were gonna
just
do
in the
that, it
table?
would be in the
That
table.
would, that would be a
So-
table
Would
change.
so-
say,
But I mean,
with a footnote,
Okay.
to do it with,
Yeah, because you
with a
can
footnote.
still have it in both places in that.
do you want to look
Yeah.
at all
But it's
zones?
a conditional use in,
I think it was just the R2 that
Just
we're
the R2.
considering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just R2.
Yeah, I mean-
Permitted in all, but R2 is conditional use.
well,
So
that's-
I
you
guess,
have to allow it,
right,
Right.
no matter where.
right.
But it probably should say accessory dwelling, or not accessory dwelling. accessory
Detached.
dwelling. A detached accessory dwelling is by conditional use permit.
Yeah, in R2.
Table in R2.
Okay.
So maybe just, for the next meeting, Vic, just a little sample of that table was shown.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
we'll do that with a footnote, right? in the-
Yeah, we can do it.
Footnote.
Yeah.
That's not saying that they can't do it.
That's
It's basically just saying they have to come in,
They just have to-
they have to show that they're not making it into a Taj Mahal, or it's just a detached accessory dwelling unit.
That's correct, and it's not already that the lot already
There's
doesn't
over-
have one,
Right.
and the lot is tiny that it can't fit.
Okay.
And they're trying to squeeze it in, and per squeezing it in, it fits. But then it loses the rest of the architectural design that the ordinance intent has too,
Right.
so.
Okay.
Not to prolong the discussion
Oh,
about
no.
On what, ADUs?
about ADUs, but I took the, after we had the vote, and I voted against the motion, and the motion carried, and that's great, so, you know, everybody should support whatever the board approves, whether it's, you know, unanimous or not. But in going back over how we got to where we are, it's absolutely crystal clear that there was no intent to remove detached. It was allowed, when we combined those
Well, that's what we're
all
saying.
together, we no longer allowed them. The language was incorrect. It wasn't just that it was totally wrong by comparison to what had been. We had no intent to change what
The
we
wording that
allowed.
was previously
And
existing.
then the new one didn't allow something that had been allowed before without any discussion by the board. It was obviously, it got put in there and we didn't catch it in the last reading. So, I mean, I totally agree with what you guys were saying, that you remembered it, I didn't remember specifically the discussion, but I take your word for it. But it was clear that we never intended to remove that. That it should have stayed in, crystal clear the way it was, because it was clear in the old ordinance.
So the intent of it was not to allow detached?
There was no discussion around changing what was allowed. It was only we were combining them into one document. And
And then it
we
just
put-
got
and it
just
got put in,
misprinted.
for whatever reason, it got put in there incorrectly. It was just wrong, the way it was worded.
Approval of previous minutes for September 19th.
Who wrote
I
them?
make a motion to approve the minutes of September 19th.
Did you remember her name right?
Yeah, how many of you guys actually read them?
Nice. She knows what.
We go on the
She knows
presumption
what
that you've done a good job.
She knows.
You
She
read
knows.
those, you read those,
She
right?
knows what she can control and how to control them. Trust me, she knows what to write.
That's good.
It doesn't matter what we say, it's what she puts in the minutes. That counts.
So you should read it.
Well, it is
Well,
recorded
it
as
doesn't
well.
say me and Dick get into an argument.
That was after.
Yeah, that was after the meeting was closed.
And
So
then
you
It
nine-
didn't-
doesn't say I hugged him when we're all done either.
No, there was nothing about hugging
We
you.
don't wanna know about that.
Yeah, that's on your own time.
Say, Priscilla?
The
919?
9/19/19 isn't in it.
Oh, yeah.
That discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. As written.
Of 9/19/19?
9/19/19.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Go home.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna start misspelling your names and see if you pick up on that.
Okay.
You always want to put something in there to see if it's correct.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Johnny, you got any pub?